Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability to our September meeting. We're going to begin with a roll call. So when I say your name, if you could unmute and say here or some other indication that you are present at the meeting. So Anna is going to be absent today. Jarrett is here. Christy will be absent. Teresa. Matt is going to be absent as well. Alicia.
Here.
Cool. Nolan.
Yes.
Nice. Jonna. I see her there. Colin Murphy.
Yes, sorry, I'm here.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. All right, I don't see Colin yet. Andrew Predmore. Don't see Andrew.
Andrew's no longer director of
Oh, yes.
sustainability.
That's right. So he will not be. Okay, Shelby.
Here.
Cool. Najla.
Here.
Awesome. And Joseph.
Here.
Awesome. It's great to see everybody today. Our next order of business is approval of the agenda. So I know, Joseph, you sent an email to Lauren and I prior to the meeting about moving old business before new business. So if you would like to make a motion to address that, now would be perfect time for that.
I would, yeah. I move that for this meeting and for future meetings that old business precede new business in the order of items in the agenda.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Yep.
Awesome.
Nice to see you, Joseph.
Likewise.
Alrighty, so then we will do a vote on making that change before we go into a vote on the agenda. So I'll go through the roll call, and whenever I say your name, just say yes, no, or abstain. So Jarrett votes yes. Alicia.
Yes.
Nolan.
Yes.
Jonna.
Yes.
Shelby.
Yes.
Najla.
Yes.
And Joseph.
Yes.
Alrighty, so that change is made to the agenda, and old business will precede new business. And now we will go into a vote on the agenda approval unless somebody else has a change that they would like to make.
I just had one question. I wanted to talk about something briefly. Should I add that to the agenda now? Or is new business like an open discussion?
Yeah, so in new business, before we move from new business into working groups, I'll ask if anyone else has any new business, and that would be a good time for you to.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be on the agenda. Great.
No.
Oh.
All right. Does anyone else have any issues that they see with the agenda? Alrighty, seeing none, we will move into a vote on approving the agenda. So Jarrett votes yes. Alicia?
Yeah.
Cool. Nolan?
Yes.
Jonna?
Yes.
Shelby?
Yes.
Najla?
Yes.
And Joseph.
Yes.
Alrighty, so the agenda for the meeting is adopted. Next, we will move into public comment. So if you're a member of the public who would wish to make a comment at this meeting, please raise your hand and I will call on you. You get up to 3 minutes to speak. So. Okay, so I don't see anyone indicating. I see that Donald is giving us updates in the chat. Cool. Alrighty, so if that's all we have, then we will move on to the report from chair. I don't really have that much to report. I did see that Sunrise Bloomington recently launched a divestment campaign urging IU to shift away from fossil fuels, which I think is pretty exciting. Harvard just announced, I think last week or this week, that they would be divesting. So, hopefully IU can join that movement. And that's really all I have. So then we will move to report from ESD. Lauren?
Yeah, I'm gonna need 1 minute to share my screen. One sec. Can you see this? Okay, great. So today, as part of our standing agenda item to follow up on our discussion about climate change and its implications globally, I wanted to provide a highlight of this report, which was a collaboration between Monroe County specifically, and let me let Colin in from the waiting room, Monroe County and the Environmental Resilience Institute, which is part of IU. As a background on what we will be talking about, basically, the Environmental Resilience Institute is helping local governments, so not only cities like Bloomington, and we also participate in this, but also counties evaluate their preparedness for climate change and provide a assessment about ways in which they are prepared or perhaps less prepared for the specific impacts of climate change in Indiana. And so this has been an ongoing effort to get the questions answered. It's in a questionnaire format, and then the county officials self-report as part of a questionnaire that basically helps you assess areas of improvement. And they have a scale from 0 to 10. And the right here is just a little portion of the report, which I sent to you, that shows basically a readiness score, least prepared being 0 and most being 10. Monroe County ranks about in the middle, which is actually better than most municipalities in Indiana, but there's a lot of progress to be made. So the impacts relate to 3 areas: extreme heat, extreme precipitation, and floodplain management. I was just going to talk through some of the sort of highlights from the report, and then if anyone had any questions, if they've had the chance to go through it, we can address those and talk about next steps as to how it relates to the commission. Okay, so this is just a follow-up of our climate change standing agenda item. Like I said, Monroe County ranked a little bit higher. This is self-reported. I'm hoping that ERI has consistency where the same communities will report over time and see if they're improving, but this is the first time that this has been done for most of these communities. An average of all Indiana communities was about 4.66. So there's 15 of them that answered in total. So fairly small, but they're all in Indiana. And so we responded that we are slightly more prepared for extreme heat than other communities, but have more closely are matched with other Indiana communities in extreme precipitation and floodplain management. So slightly higher than average. It's actually not too much different from similar size. And that's a little bit with a caveat there, because only 3 governments of a similar size to Monroe County answered. So kind of dig into what this means in particular, but just to give you an idea, we're slightly more prepared, but there's plenty of room for improvement. So assessment scores, it broke into different categories, and different county officials or county staff in these areas answered these questions. And so it looked at how extreme heat, extreme precipitation, and floodplain use affect these different areas. So for built environment, the score was particularly high, as well as emergency management, but in other areas there were lower scores, such as public health and safety and planning and land use drove the overall scores for Monroe County lower, especially for extreme heat. So for public health, this really has to do with anticipating how things like extreme heat will affect people that may not have access to things like air conditioning, et cetera. And planning and land use, just looking at the implications if there's additional flooding, how that relates if a lot of the county is built up with pavement. So the 3 climate impacts that, according to this assessment, Monroe County was most prepared on are areas that the county has been actively trying to improve. And so that includes increased stress on existing communication systems during extreme weather. So some ways that the county is working to improve this is to have a county-wide emergency management notification system. So if there's things like, extreme weather, et cetera, that county residents can be notified on their phone. Increased impacts on residents during and after flood and heat events. As these will become more frequent, it's more incumbent on the county and local government in general to respond to emergencies and try to work with residents to recover from those. And the 5th one was floodplain inundations and surface flooding. And so it's something that City of Bloomington is working on as well with things like greenways and green infrastructure. So as we expect that these sort of impacts will become more frequent, then trying to anticipate those and become more resilient to improve the results following the flooding. So some areas that the county did not rank as highly in relate to some more recommendations of ways to further prepare. So, and these have to do a lot with social and environmental vulnerabilities to climate change. So how climate change impacts could affect the local economy, and that could result in things like reduced tourism or increased price of inputs to goods that are made within the county. Incorporating climate and disaster resilience into economic development strategic plans. So instead of just anticipating how that's going to go, as well as including it into emergency management, establishing protocols for providing assistance to residents who may face financial strain from higher energy costs. We see this happening already. Today, it's quite hot out. I've gotten a couple of emails from people that say that they're struggling with their utility costs, and I've been able to point them to more resources through their township or through pandemic relief for people that are in economic straits. But as the number of hot days keeps increasing, then there's increased strain on people that already have economic troubles and then are facing those high utility costs. And then integrating funding for readiness actions within the financial planning. So this is going to be a perennial challenge. It becomes more expensive each year to account for these impacts, but then there's constrained funding available at the local level. So I think this also has to do with looking to state and federal financing for anticipating some of these infrastructure needs that are coming, or should be started already, honestly. So there's more detail in each of these within the reports, but just kind of wanted to give the overall idea of helping officials hone in to areas that are important to work on, primarily related to the county. So this was customized to Monroe County, and there are additional sort of grant funding opportunities there as well. Just some areas, again, within precipitation and floodplain that are a challenge, and we have spoken about this in past meetings, are surface flooding in developed areas are a challenge, as you have perhaps more hard surfaces. So offsetting those with green infrastructure is particularly important. So other areas that were particularly low are habitat for sensitive species in developed areas was scored pretty low for Monroe County in comparison to other areas. Illnesses from outdoor air pollution, so that relates to days where there's a higher amount of particulate matter or ozone and heat-related illnesses. So if people are already vulnerable, for instance, if you are unhoused or elderly and are particularly sensitive to high heat days or heat-related illnesses, then it becomes incumbent to ensure that people have access to things like cooling shelters on days that are particularly hot. So you can see that Monroe County will often have an alert on days where it's over 90 degrees to say things like the fire station are or other community shelters are open for people that need to get out of the heat. So next steps, this was just a very brief overview, but County Council is having a work session on September 28th where Cody Smith, who's with Environmental Resilience Institute, will be presenting these next step findings to the County Council at 6:30. Provided the Zoom link here. So as areas where this commission could provide follow-up on this report, either if you're just interested in this or want to support the County Environmental Commission, you could attend the meeting, and then I will continue to interface with the Environmental Commission, of which I'm a part of, as to the next steps. I think we will be reviewing the grant funding resources and trying to evaluate whether any of those the commission can help provide additional support to the county to see if there's some areas where they might be eligible for grant support in particular. So I will stop screen sharing so I can see you. But does anyone have any questions after reviewing the report or in response to that brief presentation?
Sorry, just one, which is where can we get that Zoom link? I assume it's on the county website?
Yeah, I'll also email it out to you again.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm definitely interested in the.
Okay,
as
great.
well.
Also, I could be totally wrong, but I thought that meeting was at 5:30, not 6:30.
I'll check. I'll check though.
Yeah,
Since you're the one that told me about it, then I'm probably right.
but yeah, I don't know the
Think
schedule of
Joseph
that
has his
meeting is.
hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Did want to ask, I know that this particular ERI effort focuses on adaptation to climate change. Is there an equivalent report or effort in place for the county on climate change mitigation efforts?
Not that I'm aware of outside of our emergency and mitigation or hazard planning, which relates to climate impacts, but doesn't specifically reference climate change as the driver of those. We've done a vulnerability assessment for the city of Bloomington, so that covers obviously a lot of Monroe County, but there are different challenges that the county at large has that are slightly different than Bloomington.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Lauren, has the city not done the same thing with the HRI process as the county has done?
We have, so we answered the same questions. Some of them were, some of the assessment areas could only be answered by Monroe County. So I'm gonna go back to Cody and see, make sure that our report is updated with the Monroe County like public health sections. So when we got our report, it was partially complete because we were waiting for the county to answer. So I'll go back, but some of the findings were different, and I'm happy to talk about that side by side after that county work session as well. Anyone else? I guess just in terms of other updates, if nobody has any other questions about that, the next meeting related to the city budget is on the 29th. So 2 weeks from now, there are continuing meetings. I think there's one tomorrow about annexation. Could or could not relate to this commission, depending on your interest. We are continuing to move forward. I will be one of the presenters on a SolarRaise session, information session about installing solar on Wednesday, tomorrow at noon. And other than that, we're waiting to hear about funding for expanding some more of our programs, but the Bloomington Green Home Improvement Program is ongoing, and we continue to get interest and intakes, and sent that out to residences via their water bills. So if you receive a water bill from the city of Bloomington, you got that in your water bill for September. And so our department will keep working with those people that are looking to get financing for energy efficiency and solar projects to get lending for that. So I think that's about it probably for me. I am going to wait to see if we have time to do that second presentation that's in the new business, because there are a couple of other agenda items that I'd rather get through before you guys have to listen to me again.
Thanks, Lauren. That's
Yeah.
great. So then since Matt is unable to be here with us today, we will be skipping the update from council. But like Lauren said, the council is currently working on the budget and then also annexation. And the next meeting is for the budget is on the 29th, like Lauren said. So, and you can find the information for that on the city website, along with the budget recommendations from, I believe, the mayor, and then also certain recommendations from some city council members. So then we will move into old business. We have city resources for residents as an update. Does anyone have an update for that?
Yeah, I can comment
Joseph?
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Let's see, is it possible to share screen? It might be valuable to be able to
Yes.
show the spreadsheet.
Let me just enable that for you.
Sure, thank you. Or if you have it up, you can also show it as well, Lauren. Oops, all right.
Letting you know.
Yes, I do have the capacity, and I need to share that. And hopefully that will be visible. Sorry, it's a large space and I have a lot of windows open, so I'm trying to make sure it's visible. There, good, full screen available to everyone. Okay. So after the homeowner education series presentation at the May BCOS meeting, I had a follow-up meeting with Christy Lindberg of CBU and Angela Monroy of HAND, who are the presenters. And at that meeting, I proposed initiatives and resources related to sustainability for the education program. And they elaborated further on some of the existing city programs. So the takeaway of that meeting was that existing funding and services are underutilized. So before creating additional resources, they thought a good next step would be to improve the visibility of the existing services. So what I did was compiled the document that's being shared right now to catalog all of the city services, which will ultimately be provided to, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but I believe Andrew Krebs, who is the digital brand manager in the office of the mayor, to be able to provide a web page on the city site to host all of these items that would make them searchable to residents. So it's been rounded out with the help of city personnel from each of the respective departments. But if there are any commissioners who are interested in reviewing it before I provide it to Andrew Krebs, I could wait until the start of next week to deliver that if anyone wants to let me know that they're interested in reviewing it first. But as you can see in the document, it just breaks down the department, the service, and then details about it. And then also has major categories for financial services, educational services, and then direct engagement. So the idea being that anyone can start from one link on the city page and then be able to determine what resources are available to them based on their needs or interests.
Hey, thanks for putting this all together. I mean, I didn't know half of these things. Also, I was going to say, as my day job, I do a lot of web design and work in the web. So if you guys need help getting this onto the web in any way, I can help.
Yeah, I think when we have a draft of what this will look like on the website, it'd be helpful to get commissioner feedback as to whether it's usable, just kind of user tested and determine whether we're missing any information. We would link it to the sustainability page, but that's not the only place that people go to find information. So I'm envisioning, hopefully with Housing and Neighborhoods Development's blessing, that they might be able to link to it as well, so that you can see across city all the things that are happening, especially volunteer opportunities as well here that Joseph has listed that are ongoing.
Yeah, this is a lot of good information.
There are an extraordinary number of city services. But yeah, that's all I had to say on that. If no one's interested in reviewing it, then I will go ahead and deliver that probably by tomorrow.
If you could also just send it out just to the group so we can look at it personally.
Yes, you know what? That's a good thing. I will do as well. I will put I'll put a link to it at the end of or during the next segment into the chat so that everybody can have access to it. And maybe Lauren, if you also wouldn't mind sending that out in the follow-up
Yeah.
email with the other linked information. Thank you.
I'd be happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joseph. That looks awesome. I think that's a great way to make sure people are taking advantage of all the resources, like you said, that the city does provide. Then we will move into new business. Our first up on the agenda, new business, is a local ordinances for plastic reduction presentation from Jana. Oh, Najla, do you have something to say?
Sorry. Yeah, I have old business.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to add that Jarrett and Colin and I are planning to attend the September 29th City Council meeting on the budget in order to speak on the Housing First resolution that we passed in February and to how that relates to the city proposed budget. And anyone from BCOS who would like to attend can feel free to message me and we can make plans. That's it. Sorry, I can't put my hand down.
No worries. All right, so then we will move into, actually, does anyone else have any old business that they wish to bring up? All righty, seeing none, now we will go to your presentation.
Great, thank you. Lauren, can you enable the screen sharing for me?
Yes.
Thank you. There we are. So I just a little bit about. Sorry about that. I attended a webinar this summer that was about birds and plastic. It was put on by the American Bird Conservancy and centered around the state of Florida because, of course, they're very concerned about plastic in the ocean. However, they, like us, like Indiana, for those who don't know, Indiana has a state law that forbids the banning of plastic bags by any city. Not everyone may know that. We had a pretty good, yeah, you can see that. We had a pretty strong ban the bag movement locally until 2016. It was really picking up speed. And then the state decided that they would pass this law saying that no individual city can ban plastic bags. Well, I found out in this presentation that the state of Florida has a very similar law, and they have found some really excellent ways to work around that. What they are doing is they are attacking it through local ordinances. For example, banning certain types of plastic, depending on what the community wants to ban on public property and in city-owned buildings, and in some cases at, for example, licensed city events. So I don't know if Indiana maybe has any type of law specifically preventing that, but their website is plasticfreefl.org, and they have strategy, and most importantly, let me make sure I can bring it up. They have sample local ordinances, a number of them. Let me know if you're able or not able to see this, because I can see it, but I can't tell what I'm sharing. I'm not always sure what I'm sharing with you. Let's see.
We still see your PowerPoint, but if you press.
Oh, you're still seeing the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you. Move to the website. Let me find what I wanted to share especially is they have lists and lists of links to city ordinances, and also how you can work with your city government. Of course, I'm not finding what I want. But they have strategies for how to speak to your, for example, city council, your city council representatives, but also the city legal department, for example, and how that, here we are. Can you see the Plastic Free Florida website?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Excellent. I want to take you to the page of sample legislation there. Can you see the page that says sample legislation? Do I
Yeah.
need to? Okay. Because so if you look down here, there, all of these are hot links. Boynton Beach, polystyrene foam, balloons, and confetti on city property. Largo, Florida, foam plus straws ordinance, city property. So all of these, except for one, does talk about county property. So this would be public buildings, it would be City Hall. Theoretically, perhaps it could be the farmer's market. It would be events that need to be permitted. And it basically tells you and shows you what the ordinances say. And again, how to speak to, like, this is City of Boynton Beach. Well, it's their entire agenda, but it kind of walks you through the process. And I was really excited about that because it seems like a good way for us to get around our state, state laws. And perhaps at least, even if we can't do it citywide, we can have the city government offices, city government buildings and property setting good examples. So that is the basics of my presentation. Again, let me bring you back to the main page. It's plasticfreefl.org is the website for people who want to do more work on this or get more resources. So anyway, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. It's very short and sweet. I can send out I have the links on my PowerPoint presentation and I can share it with the group so that you guys can look in a little bit more depth. It needs a little bit of research to see what if the state banned anything else besides plastic bag ordinances, if they have banned city government buildings from doing anything. It would need a little bit more specific research into the law, but I wanted to get us started. So does anybody have any questions? Oh, Nejla? I think I saw your hand first.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for doing this research, Jonna. I think this is a great idea. And I mean, it's definitely a promising area for us to research and see if we might find a solution that fits our community. Do you think this might be a good fit to include in the Just Transition Working Group?
Possibly. I wasn't sure if the waste working group was going to start up again. But if it's not, then definitely in Just Transition, unless the rest of the group has objections to that. Joseph, I saw your hand up second, and I know you also were talking about the waste reduction group. What is that starting again? What do you think?
Actually, I'd like to note first, I put in a link to the chat about the Indiana code that bans the regulation of materials. And it's
thank you.
It's IC 36-1-3-8.6, and it's titled Regulation of Reusable or Disposable Auxiliary Containers Prohibited. So it aims to intervene with the regulation of anything, anywhere, to kind of answer your question. Obviously, you can read it to find out exactly what the code specifies.
Yeah.
It's not an easy logical read, but the intent is to be as broad and far reaching as possible.
Yeah.
So it is definitely not limited to bags.
See, I wonder how it would react to local government property. I wonder.
Right. My personal proposal is municipal disobedience, but perhaps we can take that up in a different meeting because that would be a long conversation.
I'd
And
be
with-
happy to have our legal staff look at it as well after there's a
Thank you.
review of the different city policies. Like an example would be where we can't regulate building materials generally for energy efficiency, but we do have a green building policy for our own city, for our own facilities for them to be Energy Star. So even if it's not sort of a ban, we could adopt a policy stating that we're not using plastic in our own operations, for instance. We have a sustainable purchasing policy that already says something to that effect, but formalizing it so it's consistent across different plastic types would be a good move. So thanks for looking into that, and I would be happy to assist you in following up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Be sure to send out those links. Colin, did you have?
I wanted to echo the thanks for bringing this up and for researching this. This is something that I think is super, super important for municipalities, for local governments to do. And I would say not just for plastic, but also for compostable single-use items as well, because those are often made with corn, which competes for other land uses. And the whole throwaway mentality is a cultural, I think, defect that I think local governments can work to correct. And so I'm very much so interested in following up with this and figuring out how we can action it. The second point I wanted to make on this is it would be great if maybe the policy working group would be interested in making a list of like providing some kind of a preemption analysis of the state government for this commission, because I guess I'm curious of all of the ways in which local governments have managed to circumvent that and pass progressive bans or policies, and then just sort of all of the laws and cases in which the state has preempted progressive policies at the local level. I think that could be really useful for us going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I agree. Any other questions?
Similar thoughts. I mean, I agree. The plastic ban, I mean, really all waste really needs to be banned, but we'll start with plastic. And like Joseph said, municipal disobedience, I'm all for that too. So yeah, willing to help out if I can.
Do we still have a policy working group? Does anybody know?
Yes, we just recently restarted it, and me and Jarrett and Shelby. But I think Shelby, are you still in it? I can't remember if I think you said you're still in it.
Yeah, I was looking, I thought
Yeah.
originally at the budget one. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the current
gonna go-
policy we're looking
Okay,
at.
okay, then yes,
Yeah.
yes. In theory, I would still love to participate in that. The practicality behind that's not really working out for me at the moment.
Yeah, no worries. But yes, to answer your question, Jonna, we have revived that working group, and we're currently just looking at the budget as our only policy, but certainly this, if we can help with this in that group, we should definitely address it there too. I agree.
Thank you. Colin, you still had your hand up. Did you have another question? No, okay. Shelby, did you have a?
Yeah, to answer your question a little bit earlier about the waste working group. So Joseph and I have worked on that a little bit. We've had one meeting. And I think while like waste reduction, plastic reduction came up briefly, I think one of our bigger focuses was looking at composting. So it's a possibility, if it doesn't end up fitting in like the policy working group, that we could reintroduce it to the waste working group. I know that particular working group isn't super off the ground yet. So if this is something that can kind of get it going, it might fit there as well.
That's great. Thanks for that. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, I'll send out that information then, the links for people.
I have a question that's sort of off topic, but is the role of this commission to be an advisory to the city council? Or what is the role of this commission, I guess, as far as policy decisions go?
City council and the mayor's office, so it's half council appointees and half mayoral. So if there's a resolution, for instance, that could potentially be taken up for a full city council vote, let's say that there's one that's adopted for plastics, and it would need a council sponsor. So at that point, it could potentially then become a full resolution.
Thanks.
We're still in new business, right? Or, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything else?
I was going to ask, Lauren, you said you wanted to wait on your other presentation.
Yeah, if there's time left at the end, it's 6:45, and I know that there was a proposal that that the Just Transition Working Group had met about on the 7th. So I'd like to give more time for that, and then we can come back to my thing or move it to next meeting, depending on time.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I just wanted, if we had a minute, I wanted to bring up, because we were just talking about ordinances. So my question is relating to ordinances or something like that. So I've been trying to think about like low hanging fruit, things that are, should be simple things that we could do. And I know that something that's still going on in this county is we still use glyphosate in the county, in the parks, for like weed, I'm guessing for weed suppression. And I don't think anyone can say that glyphosate is something we should be using. So it seems like a pretty easy thing. I just don't know what we need to do as a group. How do we get it done to basically effectively ban glyphosate in the city at the minimum, and city parks at the minimum, maybe? I just don't know what is entailed in something like that, and if this is the right group for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of potential avenues. I know that we use it in very limited circumstances. And that would be by city landscaping. It's possible that during the public comment period at a park commissioners meeting, that could be something that's brought up for discussion. I can also look into that and figure out what the best avenue for directing a concern would be.
Okay.
Colin, your hand's raised.
Does anyone know if the city of Bloomington has an integrated pest management strategy by chance? As a follow-up question to Alicia's comment.
I believe we do, but I can also check up on that.
That'd be great. Thanks, Lauren.
Alrighty, Najla.
Hi, yeah, I have an item of new business. I would like to recommend that we invite John Zodi, the new director of HAND, Housing and Neighborhood Development, to speak with us about the Housing First resolution at a time when it's convenient for him. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Is it something you think we could vote on, or do we need to think about it before voting?
I don't think we need to vote on having a guest speaker. That would be great.
Yeah. Colin, do you have something to say? Oh, okay, sorry. I think it's a great idea too, and I'm happy to reach out to him before our next meeting and just give him the dates, I guess, for our next few meetings and see if any of those fit with his schedule and if he would be willing to.
That'd be great.
Because I think it'd be great too, since he's fairly new in the role too, just to meet with us so that we have that connection as well.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that. And hopefully we can have some maybe we can discuss having some questions ready for him as well.
Yeah, definitely. Once I hear back from him when he is able to attend, we can
Yeah,
maybe use email to
sounds good. To
formulate.
make the best use of his time. Great.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so then we will, if no one else has any new business at the moment, we will move into working group updates. So we have the Just Transition Working Group meeting update and then the Environmental Justice Solutions proposal. So whoever would like to take it away.
Nigel or John? Just kidding. Nigel or Jonna or Alicia, would someone like to take the report back from our strategic planning?
We can tag team it. Do you want to just share the document?
Sure, I'm happy to. I don't believe I'm able to, let's see, share. Lauren, could you enable that? Great, thank you very much. All right. All right, can you see my screen here?
Yes.
All right, well, I don't know, Nejla, would you like to take it away since this was your original idea?
She might have stepped away for a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll go ahead. Feel free to chime in, Alicia and Jonna. So we voted on, we voted on this strategic plan in the Just Transition Working Group. This was a sort of a process of several weeks, and we identify, that there are all of these sort of interconnected social and environmental issues that we're facing in the city of Bloomington, in the community. And we kind of affirm that we think that workers and residents everywhere have a right to housing, healthcare, a livable climate, clean air, water, land, and food. And that we can't really address climate insecurity and economic insecurity without addressing sort of the underlying policy and institutional obstacles to sustainable economic development. Let's see here. So we feel like in order to address the climate crisis adequately, we also have to address core social inequities, right? And so we kind of set out in this strategic plan on sort of a bottom-up kind of research process to determine in each of these categories, climate and energy justice, economic justice, and these other categories as well, sort of like what are the most pressing needs, if you will, and where can BCOS most strategically intervene, and what should the city council be prioritizing? And so we're kind of going to be breaking up, leading the research on each of these aspects going forward. So,
Yeah.
And we have this plan here. Alicia?
I was just gonna say the ultimate goal, like you're probably getting to, is to come up with policy recommendations on things that we can do. Yep, there we go. So yeah, we're just going to go through this kind of research process and looking at all the big topics, and we're going to try to bring people into our meetings that are, maybe representatives of people in the community. And we're going to just go through a research kind of based process to kind of understand, like Colin was saying, the major needs. And we're also still looking at the Cleveland model as a kind of base because they do have a lot of policy recommendations already. They actually have like hundreds. So we're kind of using that as a framework, and then we're going to look at what's going on specifically in our community and use research, talking to people, and come up with specific recommendations for our community. That's kind of our plan.
Right, and so we want these recommendations to kind of cohere into this just transition economic development model, right? So an economic development model that addresses climate justice and economic justice and racial justice at the same time. So yeah, that's what we are going to be trying to work on in the next several months. So folks have ideas as to, you know, how we might best realize this project, sort of in terms of suggesting, I don't know, folks to bring in or organizations to speak with and so forth. Please, we're very open to your suggestions. And you can find this document in our working group folder. Great. Anything else, Jana and Alicia, that we missed here?
No, thank you for being willing to present on that.
My pleasure.
When
I
is your
think you covered everything.
when is your next working group meeting so I can put it in the notes for everyone?
Let me double check here.
28th, September 28th.
Okay.
Yep, at 7 p.m. All right, I think that does it for our report. Oh,
Awesome.
did anyone have any, sorry, did anyone have any questions I should ask about that strategic plan, about our vision and the whole project? All right.
Alrighty, so then we will do any of the other working groups. Well, I guess the waste reduction working group, do you have an update for us, or do you want to postpone the update till the next meeting? Yeah, Shelby?
I don't know if Joseph agrees on this, but I would say we'll probably end up postponing. I think our original plan was to get another meeting under our belts before we presented anything to you guys. And we haven't been able to link up this past 2 weeks, unless Joseph has anything else to add to that. That's kind of where I'm sitting at.
Yeah, Joseph.
Yes, thank you. I'll just add that formally the working group doesn't exist per our, I guess, last vote on it. So I think a first step before including it in updates would be voting it into existence. And I didn't anticipate tackling that based on the fullness of this meeting, unless there was time at the end of it to make a motion to bring it back into existence.
Okay. Okay, so then what we will do is we will jump back to Lauren's presentation, since it seems like we'll have enough time for that. And then afterwards, we'll jump back and we can have a discussion and a vote on bringing the waste reduction working group back. That
Let's
works
do
for everybody.
Environmental justice solutions proposal first.
Oh, yes. Sorry, totally.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so whoever wants to present the environmental justice solutions proposal, take it away.
All right, hello again, everybody. So as we've discussed previously, there seems to have been energy around this idea of bringing these consultants who helped Oakland prepare their climate action plan and assess the sort of racial equity components of it. There's sort of been interest in bringing them sort of to present on their process, their product, their approach, best practices, and so forth, as a way of sort of cross-pollinating, right, from municipality to municipality. And so we put together this proposal, a few of us, for your consideration. And so the proposal is essentially this resolution here, which kind of details the rationale, right? Why would we go through all this effort to bring virtually these two consultants to present on their work? And so we kind of detail that, Bloomington Common Council has already affirmed that equity is important through adopting the climate action plan. The climate action planners, Lauren included, have affirmed that. And I sort of detail where you can find those aspects of the plan, some of them here. Plus this body, right, is charged with helping to implement the climate action plan for the city. And so I feel like it's part of our due diligence or our role to kind of look at what other cities have done and then see if we can, if any of what they have done can be applicable here, essentially, as needed, as desired. And the climate action plan itself also identifies the need to mobilize community members and generate coordination with different organizations, other jurisdictions, and institutional partners to help facilitate the climate action plan implementation. And so I think that us putting on this event is doing just that, frankly. Also, I list here that the part of our statutory mission, right, which helps justify this too, and so on and so forth. And so the therefore be it resolved parts are as follows. So BCOS would commit itself to organizing an inclusive multi-stakeholder community meeting per the attached rear proposal, which we'll go over in a second. BCOS will decide on the presentation date at a time that works best for everybody, including the consultant, commissioners, and our invitee stakeholders. And I kind of arbitrarily set the timeline for sometime in the first half of December and the latter half of January, so right before the holiday season, but we can modify that here. And I should say that there are two options that everyone here is welcome to consider, or I encourage folks to consider in terms of the pricing, because this would be we're gonna have to budget for this if we end up doing it, because there is a fee for the consultant's time. And then lastly, BCOS will sort of communicate that we're doing this to the Common Council Office of the Mayor and the Monroe County authorities. And hopefully they will be down to partner with us. So the proposal itself, it kind of lays out the rationale, which I kind of already went over. And sort of Christy had provided the feedback of, well, we should have some questions that we want to answer, right? When it comes to the presenters, like one question she proposed was, what elements of Oakland's ECAP, or I should say the racial equity analysis as well, would be more or less applicable to like a smaller Midwestern city like Bloomington. And then I kind of just wanted to open it up here in a second for us to kind of generate more aims and more questions if we want before taking a vote. The proposed budget here, there are two consultants, and I kind of just assumed that it's going to be both of them, I think, tag teaming, and this is their rate per hour. My recommendation to the commission would be to choose the 2-hour option, because that would allow us plenty of time for them to do, I imagine, about an hour presentation, have time for Q&A, and then maybe have time for kind of, hopefully this will be in person and virtual. If in person, we might have, actually in either mode, we can hopefully budget some time for some interactive kind of, I don't know, community engagement process that could potentially address some of the questions and some of the aims that we establish if we approve this proposal and resolution. And then this is just a list of potential partners. So NGOs, city authorities, County of Monroe, IU, etc. All right, so that does it for the proposal. I'm wondering, just as a process point, like, are commissioners interested in maybe talking a little bit more about the aims and building them out together? Or should we do that after voting on the proposal and just go with these aims and questions for now? I'm open, the floor is open, yeah.
I did want to note that we can support either option. So I did check with our budget, and I can work once the date is set and this resolution is passed, then I would work to facilitate the billing aspect of that. But either option A or option B in terms of cost, we can cover out of the ESD budget.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren, for that context. So we had Najla, then Joe, and then Shelby. Joseph said.
Oh, yeah, I support this, and I would be willing to help come up with more questions or explicit aims outside of this meeting in our working group.
Great, thank you, Nizla. Joseph.
Yes, I actually did just want to make a point of order. I believe that a resolution is actually a type of main motion. So if it were to be following the formalities of Robert's rules, I think it would need to be moved, seconded, and then discussed is the procedure, if that's of importance in this case.
Thank you for that. That's very important. Duly noted. Shelby.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I might have missed this somewhere in all of this, but do you have bios or anything like that for these speakers, and kind of what kind of expertise they're bringing? And I do know you also mentioned that they probably would tag team it together. So are you thinking a total of like 1 2-hour event, or the potential for one speaker if we could widen basically the I guess I'm not presenting this well, I'm so sorry. Creating potentially 2 events of this that are the same event to reach a larger audience, just due basically to like scheduling reasons. Whether we could have one presenting similar topics on one meeting and then the other person doing the secondary meeting. I don't know if that would be beneficial or not. I just didn't know if it was potentially an option.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we can reformulate this proposal any way we want as a commission. So we could totally, that is, propose or request that the 2 meetings with the consultant. They right now on their radar it's 1 meeting, but that could, if we're willing to pay for all of that time, I think they might be amenable. So yeah, we can expand this proposal as we wish, for sure. And I would add that this was the product of Jarrett, Najla, and Christy, especially. All 3 of them provided input on this proposal. Okay, and then, great. Well, because sort of in abidance with, I guess, Robert's rules, I'm going to go ahead and move that would it be, I guess, not move to adopt, Joseph, what would be the motion then? Move to, to be able to discuss it.
Move to consider, I believe.
I believe it would be moved to adopt, and then the discussion would follow on the motion to adopt, and then we would either vote yes to adopt it or no, and more motions to revise it, or incidental motions along the way to make changes to it.
Okay, so we can amend it during the discussion after adopting. Is that right? Okay.
It would be incidental motions to amend it before adopting, and then the vote would be to include the amendments.
Okay, great.
Makes sense.
So I think the motion would be moved to debate this, correct? Or
I think he said, I think you just adopt it as is, and then later on, if we need to add like fill out the question section, we would make an amendment later.
Perfect.
I think that it's like you move to adopt and then you go into a discussion before you vote.
Exactly.
And then during that discussion, as a group, if we want to amend something, then somebody will make like a motion within the motion to amend the the resolution, and then that will be reflected in the final version that, if it's adopted, that we then vote on.
I see. I think maybe the issue is that we maybe can't all get it edited and finished tonight. So how do we fix that? How do we manage that?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Been separating the 2 asks, because if you're adding the objective section, I think what we really need to move forward with is authorizing either 1.5 hours or 2 hours, and then some more of the details about what the actual services agreement will be with them. Could be sorted out in the working group or email, but I think authorizing either of those time amounts and dollar amounts will allow us to get them scheduled.
Yeah, that's it. We need to get them scheduled and then we can figure out the details later. So in order to get them scheduled, do we have to adopt this today, basically?
It sounds like it, yeah. I mean, I personally would prefer sooner rather than later, but I mean, if the commission wants to work on this more, we could always, like on the specific money pieces, I mean, or the money aspect, we can, postpone by a month or however long we wish, so.
Okay, so we just need a motion to adopt.
Right.
Okay.
Would folks like more context first on the consultants? I think Shelby had requested that. We can briefly look at them if you like.
Yes, I would.
Okay, great. So yeah, Maribel Tobias is the founder of Environmental Justice Solutions. It's a Bay Area based consultant outfit. And so they work on environmental and climate justice advocacy on behalf of marginalized and overburdened communities. So Maribel looks like she's a lawyer and has pretty extensive experience in litigation, policy development, leadership of various climate justice coalitions on different levels, and different issues experience as well. Colin is a friend of mine and a fellow activist who's just, for a long time was just such an anchor in sort of the energy justice and climate justice world in the Bay Area. And he is a super sharp community organizer, coalition builder. So he and Maribel organized thousands of Oaklanders as part of the community engagement process that helped to develop the Oakland Climate Action Plan. And also these two were both the authors of the racial equity impact assessment, which we, through this proposal, would specifically be requesting that they come to present on. Colin has been organizing for a very long time, Stanford educated, and so on and so forth. Both are multilingual as well, if that helps. So those are the folks that I suppose sort of specifically reached out to invite over. Any questions on them, thoughts? Okay, hearing none. I guess we can go ahead and take this up if anyone wants to.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Second. Okay, so then we'll enter a debate or a discussion, not a debate, a discussion on the resolution. And then whenever we feel that we are ready to vote, after we've made, the amendments reflecting which option we want to choose and everything, then somebody will motion to vote. And then if everyone votes to go into vote, then we will vote on the resolution.
So the first thing is we just need to say the 2 hours. We want to do the 2 hours. Just put that in there.
Well, sorry, 1 second. I think Joseph has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I do, yes, thank you. I actually do have two questions and one comment that I think I'll make all at once and then we can address afterwards. The first is there a particular need for the entire commission to be involved in the organization of this event? And the second is there any notion of the interest and capacity of the local potential partners to attend to ensure that it will be a productive and worthwhile venture? And then my comment is just that if the commission is going to invest this amount of time and the funds proposed, I want to state my personal stance that I know, as you had mentioned, Colin, that the commission is charged with the implementation of the city's climate action plan. And I would prefer to lean towards something that produces substantive impact, such as actually implementing one of the, or as much as possible of the goals already specified in the climate action plan, in lieu of further research about implementing the goals. So those are the thoughts that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you for those. To your first question, no, yeah, this wouldn't be an investment of the whole commission or sort of a commitment of each commissioner on working on this. What I was thinking was that we could sort of, I guess, de facto establish a working group. And I mean, if we need to work that into the resolution, that's fine. But sort of a working group of those of us interested. I know Nejla's expressed interest in being part of the working group, but these few commissioners would be whoever wants would be charged with leading the implementation, with spearheading this, bottom lining it essentially, and then other commissioners could provide input as they wish. Your second question was, remind me.
Yes, is there any notion of the interest or capacity of the local potential partners that were listed in the proposal in their capacity to attend?
Yeah, good question. No, there is not at this time. I imagine there would be some interest among at least some of the entities that we listed and individuals, and but yeah, that's definitely that would need research. Essentially, we need to ask folks first. But certainly, I think there's definitely potential for us to generate excitement around this. And then well, what do folks think about Joseph's comment? I think that's certainly a valid concern, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, could we make it as part of the I don't know, do they offer anything as part of their consulting fee? Like, could they help us come up with some document or something, like something tangible, like Joseph is saying? Do they offer anything like that?
Yeah, I imagine they would. I haven't specifically asked about like what kind of product they could help us to create essentially in these 2 hours, but yeah, if commissioners are concerned about like having this a little bit more of a directed conversation after their presentation as to that could result in a product that can help us to implement the climate action plan.
Do they offer like workshops or anything where they help like a group like come up with some, like discovery workshops or brainstorming? Do they do things like that or like?
I'm almost certain of it because again, through the climate action plan process, working through the city of Oakland, they facilitated the brainstorming of thousands of Oaklanders on just all aspects of climate mitigation and resilience, essentially, for the city. So that involved a lot of getting things up on poster boards, stickering things you liked, and just a lot of interactive kind of generative and iterative work, sort of. Nejla?
Hi, yeah, I was just going to suggest, we could ask them to help us, focus on that first question that Christy had thought of, how to apply some of their ideas to our local situation. We could ask for their help on that, for instance.
Yeah, like
it's just an idea, or any other questions we came up with, we could ask for their help answering.
Yeah, it's almost like we need like a bulleted list of action items or something coming out of it, something like that, something tangible. I definitely hear that because the amount of money is not nothing.
Joseph.
Yeah, I want to apologize. I also wanted to commend everybody who worked on this resolution. It's really thorough and really well written. So I just wanted to make sure that was noted as well.
Thank you. So Jonna agrees, something tangible should come out of this. Yeah, initially I was kind of envisioning, us, I guess, using the kind of highlights from this meeting to kind of, yeah, I guess the need to, I guess, to sort of present to council, because we are that, an advisory body. But yeah, maybe we can do more. It sounds like we can do more thinking through like what this tangible product would be to make.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it'd be worth going back to them and just checking in with them and seeing what if they have ideas. Maybe they've done stuff in the past, or, maybe that would just be a good first step.
Sure. Most definitely, I can commit to doing that. Did others who haven't spoken yet have thoughts on the proposal, the resolution, the two options here? If there's a third option folks want, like Shelby had indicated, maybe, requesting 2 different meetings, we could do that as well.
I think if you vote to authorize the expense amount, and then we can get feedback over email about the structure. So if people are opposed to the spending for this particular purpose, I think that they could, for instance, vote no or whatever they think is appropriate. But if we wait until next meeting in October, that would provide some complications in doing the outreach to get people to attend if it did happen to be in mid-December.
Joseph.
Yes, being unfamiliar with organizing events and going back to my second question, I'm curious if there's any way to, or how the order of operations would be for determining community interest and capacity to attend prior to booking, in the event that, say, it's booked and it turns out that the community partners aren't necessarily available to make use of it. Is there any way to determine that in advance, to do a straw poll to understand if there would be a high likelihood that there's community participation and engagement in the event?
I think if Colin were to go back to them and ask for a list of potential dates, and then we could go back to the community partners and see if one of those worked particularly well, then we could end up scheduling in an area that works for more of those people on the potential partners list, while recognizing that it's easier for people to commit to something if they have discrete dates and more of a clear idea of who the speakers would be. So I think there's been some initial interest, but without understanding what the time frame is, then it's been vague at this point. But if we got three to 4 dates that would work with the consultants, and then we quickly had the emails sent out to these nonprofits, for instance, and be clear which of those dates work best.
Excellent, thank you.
Before, John, I wanted to quickly respond that I think maybe we should discuss in a little bit more detail the timeline, just to make sure that, again, because I was just spitballing, frankly, with those months, with that approximation. So maybe we can talk about like if that is realistic for us. Jonna.
Thank you, Colin. That was basically my main question, was why was December decided on? It sounds like it's not as decided on, but I would just point out like December is a terrible month for most people, and especially in a university town, and same thing with maybe beginning of January. So just kind of my 2 cents, but December in particular, the town does get deserted.
Yeah, maybe it'd be best to time it with like school coming back, with students coming back, so everybody's back.
Why don't we shoot for February?
February.
I mean, that would be plenty of time, I think, for us to organize this.
Yep, February sounds good to me.
Do other folks agree, disagree?
I think that provides a little more time to address some people's concerns between now and the next meeting.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I agree with that. Okay. I guess this is definitely not kosher. I think I have to copy this to make an amendment, technically under Robert's rules, but maybe we can just do Robert's rules light right now, because it sounds like this is a widely felt modification. So I would like to propose a friendly amendment. Actually, no, we have to adopt the motion before proposing friendly amendments. Is that right? Oh no, Jarrett, you said, I'm sorry, I need to work on my Robert's rules.
Yeah, so basically, like, for example, I'll make the motion to replace the words the first half of December 2021 or the latter
Right.
half of January 2022 with February. And then if somebody seconds,
Right.
is there a second?
Thank you.
Second.
All right. And then does anyone object? Okay, hearing none, that change is adopted unanimously.
Thank you, Jarrett. Appreciate that intervention. Great. February, 2022. I think that goes without saying. Brilliant. Okay. So let's see, the next step would be, well, are there any other comments then on the resolution? Actually, I'm gonna hand it to you, Jarrett, since you are the chair, to manage this decision-making process. If that's all right, or Jared or Najla.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So kind of as Lauren said, I think the important thing for us to get done, preferably today or very soon, is getting the money allocated. But if we're postponing till February, then I guess that opens up the possibility of waiting to vote on any of it until next meeting, potentially when we have more information from the hosts of the potential event. So I guess we would need to see how everyone feels about voting on the allotment of money today so that we can move forward with that, or whether we want to wait until October to allot that money when I guess we have more of this filled out.
I would note, if we're changing it to February, we should probably check with them to see what their availability is, because if we pass this and then it turns out that February doesn't work for these particular consultants, then we will pass a resolution to allot this money for something that can't happen during the timeframe specified.
Does this commission have any money allocated to it, or is it all coming out of ESD?
So the commission supplies are usually around 125. I checked with the department earlier today to see if the remainder could come out of sustainability supplies, which has been underutilized because there's been fewer in-person events. So we're fine for the amount. It seems like there's a couple of different things that people had follow-up questions on. So it's 727. Do people want to vote on this today or next meeting?
I would move to, well, I don't know if I can move to adjourn yet, but I would move to resume this motion as unfinished business in our subsequent meeting. October.
So tabling the motion until next meeting.
Correct.
Do I hear a second?
I would second that.
All right. Do I hear any objections? Alrighty, hearing none, that is unanimous. And we will move out of discussion on this resolution until the October meeting, the October BCOS meeting. And since we are so short on time, I don't think we're going to have the availability to go back to Lauren's presentation or the discussion on the waste reduction working group. But if those are, we can bring those to the agenda for next time and ensure that they're covered then. I don't know why I'm so red on the screen right now, but so then unless anyone has any short announcements or anything, then we will adjourn this meeting. I will say just right now, our next meeting is October 12th at 6 p.m. So just so everyone's aware of that. And I'm sure that Lauren will update us if the governor extends the emergency so that we can be on Zoom again. So does anyone have anything that they would like to say before we adjourn? Alrighty.
Anyway, the governor's been passing his extensions right at the end of the month before they expire. I anticipate it will probably be extended because of Delta. But I'll let you know, it should be 2 weeks in advance of our next meeting, whether it's virtual or in person.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Alrighty, seeing no other hands, then we will adjourn this meeting. I will see you all on October 12th, if not before then. Wish you all well. Have a great rest of your day.